All right, when we are doing hair, I have some steps for you, so write these down. The first one is outline chunks. You do not want to have just lines. You want to have sections of hair. So whenever you're drawing hair, you want to try to find some sections, kind of like that. Even if something is dark, you can still find those. If you look closely or tilt the picture a little bit. Step 2 is to shade smoothly. So I'm going to start by just normal shading the area, not thinking about the texture of the hair, but just shading it in. I do leave a little bit of a space in the biggest part for our highlight. And I'm going to shade this one as well. And it's a little darker since it's underneath this one up here. And then shade this one too. You can follow along with me in your sketchbook. Okay. Step 3 is to tortillon. So you're going to use your tortillon and just kind of lightly blend towards the center. I'm not going to make it perfect, but it helps smooth it a bit, but I don't want it overly smooth. Gets rid of a little bit of that paper texture. And then step 4 is to add hair texture. And when you do this, try not to use the tip of your pencil, because then you get a really even line. And don't just draw normal, you want to do a flicking motion. So when you do the flicking motion, you naturally get a thicker, like a hair follicle almost, and then thinner at the very end of the hair, which is what your hair naturally does. And then you can also do that with the side of your pencil to get even bigger hair textures. So I'm gonna go in and start texturizing the hair chunk. Again, working towards that middle. You don't want everything to be too even or consistent, because then it won't look realistic. Get it kind of darker on the ends. And you might have like an area that's a little darker in the middle that kind of breaks up that chunk. So just building up texture in the hair. And then I also want to put some flyaways around the edge, so that's going to make it look more realistic as well. I'm just kind of going over everything to give it some texture. And the same can work for curly hair. You just are gonna have bigger swirls, and then you would shade those in just the same as these. Once you've added some hair texture and some flyaways, then this last step is optional. It helps a lot with blonde hair, or if you have a lot of highlights, you go in with your pointy eraser if you have one, or a little eraser, and I go back into that highlight area and I do the same flicking motion, but towards, or like inward out. And then if your eraser's kind of dirty, you can clean it and then go back in, and that helps break up any line that you might have created when you were shading. Okay, and you would do that extra if you had blonde hair. You would just go in and do even more, or white hair or gray hair. You'd go in and do more of the erasing to make it light but still have texture in there. Okay, if you're doing dreads or black hair, it's a different texture. So I like to just make, I call them ch-ch-chs. So you go and you just do that kind of all over the area, making kind of like really messy polka dots almost. So you start doing that, then you go in and you do a little dabbing with the tortillon. And then go back in and do more ch-ch-chs. And then eventually, like, just keep doing that back and forth between the pencil and the tortillon. And eventually you'll build up that texture. And you can have lighter areas. You can even do the same and have your eraser in certain areas. So that builds up a nice texture. If you're doing facial hair, you want to shade the area first. So give yourself a skin tone first, because there's there's skin underneath the hair. So I give myself a skin tone, and then I can go in and make little whiskery guys. If you're doing an eyebrow, they might be longer hairs, or like this. But just making sure that you have that facial skin tone underneath first before you start adding the hairs. All right, get to it.